Okay, so we've got guest speaker Dr. Chris Buntel, from the Vice President of Zenova Asia, and we're going to be thinking forward a little bit. We've been thinking about creativity, we've been thinking about idea generation, and obviously throughout the rest of the few days we're going to be thinking about business models, and we're going to be thinking about creating business models of enterprises, of potential businesses. But Chris is going to talk to us about some of the pitfalls as we start to model our businesses, as we start to think about launching endeavours. Chris is going to help us think about some of the pitfalls, some of the issues, some of the problems.
I'll try to just speak. I'm pretty loud already. So thanks, Steve. It's great to be here. And I'm from Zenova in Singapore. And one of our slogans that we use all the time is, problems are a good thing. Now, this applies more to your business life than your personal life. You know, when I go home at night or on the weekend or go on holiday, I don't want problems. I just want to relax and have a good time and have a nice meal and sleep well. I don't want problems at all. At work, however, problems are actually a good thing to have because they force you to improve. If you have problems, you're going to become more efficient. You'll come up with a better product or a new product. And even if you think you don't have any problems, you still have problems, and you're just not aware of it. Or your competition is working to be better than you are, and even though you think everything's great, you have competitors and new companies suddenly becoming a threat. So problems are actually a great thing to have at work. So I was thinking a couple months ago about interesting topics to come to different companies and universities. I'll talk about things like intellectual property, licensing, innovation. And it occurred to me that everyone talks about success for startup companies. It's fun to talk about success. You know, yesterday, for those of you who were here, we heard about BlackTrace, which is a pretty successful, relatively new company. And you know, it's nice to say, I came up with this great new product, here's how it is, here's how fantastic it is, here's all the money I've made, I did an IPO, I drive an expensive car, I have nice clothes. Success is easy to talk about. The problem is, it's hard to learn from success. You know, it's hard to say, I'm going to be the next Apple, I'm going to be the next Steve Jobs, I'm going to be the next Bill Gates of Microsoft. It's hard to copy success. And what occurred to me is very few people talk about failure. Because at first, it seems kind of sad or depressing or discouraging to talk about failure. But the more I thought about it, I liked the topic. You know, first off, it's a new topic. It's something you don't often hear about. And I like to talk about new things. But you also learn more from failure. And if you learn about other people's failure, you can try to avoid making those same mistakes yourself. So you don't have to make all the mistakes in the world yourself, because thousands of other people have made mistakes before. And if you're aware of those mistakes, you can do better. Or at least you can try to avoid those problems and increase your chance of success. So I've given this talk 3 or 4 times now, and each time the slides get better because there's a lot of interesting discussion, and there are different things that I didn't think of on the first draft of these slides. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from you to see if you agree or disagree, or if I missed anything that may be mistakes that you made, or mistakes that you're concerned about will actually make my slides better. So this slide didn't exist yesterday, but after Mark's presentation, he did such a good job of personalizing. Unfortunately, I don't have photos of how cute and adorable I was as a kid, But at least I went through the 5 W's of who, what, where, when, and why, for me, to give you a little bit of context about who I am, what I've done before, and how I came to be here today. So first off, I'm still a US citizen, but I've lived in Singapore for 8 years now. And I'm a permanent resident in Singapore, so I'll stick around Asia for a long time. And I have an unusual background. I started out in science, so I have a PhD in chemistry from Stanford in California. But then I also went on to get a law degree. So I'm a US intellectual property lawyer and deal with things like patents, trademarks, and copyrights and trade secrets as part of my job. So I'm the head of the Singapore office. We're actually a Seattle company, so we're a US company, but with offices all around the world. And Singapore is our 2nd largest office. Seattle, of course, being the headquarters, is the biggest. At first I wrote Singapore, and then it dawned on me that I'm actually very global. We have customers everywhere, and we have universities and network members all around the world. So I actually travel quite a bit, and every day I talk to people in probably 4 to 6 different countries, just every single day. So it's a very global thing that we're doing at Sonova. When I started at Sonova in 2010, so 8 years ago. And before that, I had, again, kind of a strange career path. So after I finished the PhD, I went to work at law firms and did law school at night. So I spent 8 years at law firms, all the way from a very small German law firm, all the way up to a huge multinational law firm. Did that for 8 years. And then I wanted to go work for companies, because law firms is a great opportunity to learn, but you're always working for someone else. You always have a client, and I really wanted to be on the client side, on the business side. So I went to a large multinational, so it was a biotechnology company, again with offices all around the world, with thousands and thousands of employees. Did that for 4 years. And then I went to a tiny startup company. So I was employee number 6 or 7 at a very small US startup company for 2 years, and it failed. So I'm totally qualified to give this seminar. I've been there, I owned 7% of 0 at the end. I went to a startup thinking, this is a great opportunity, we'll make lots of money, I can retire early and have a nice car, a nice house, nice clothes. I ended up with 7% of nothing. But it was a great opportunity to learn. And actually, if I had been very successful, I would not have joined Sonova, and I wouldn't be here today in Vietnam. So everything worked out. And then the most interesting question is why? I did law firms for a while, companies, like normal manufacturing companies for a while. And as the startup was failing, I kind of saw the last 6 months or so that this is not going to end well, or not going to end very pretty. And I was looking at my experience, and I said, so I have science and law, I have companies big and small, law firms big and small. The big missing piece was international. So I actually said, I will exclude the US from my job search entirely. No matter how good a job it is, I'm going to ignore it. I only want to look international. So I actually had 2 job offers, one in Australia at a medical company, which probably would have been okay, and this crazy job I got in Singapore doing innovation. And here I am. Asia is exciting. The growth in the world happens in Asia, and innovation is a fantastic field to be in. And Sonova doesn't make or sell anything, but we help other companies innovate, come up with cool new products, to become more efficient, to improve supply chain, to do all these great things. So we're a very kind of coping business model that I really enjoy. So this is a little bit of a trick question. Sorry. Yeah, a lot of people, when they're thinking about startup companies, think, I just need a cool new idea. I need a great new innovation, and I'll be successful. Right? Of course not. Yeah. If the answer were yes, this would be a very short seminar, and you wouldn't be here all week thinking and planning and evaluating ideas. If it were that easy, we would all have tons of money, but the reality is it's very, very hard. Most startups fail. We all have to understand that and accept it, and that's normal. If you fail as a startup, it's normal. You're not a bad person, you're not a bad scientist or engineer or business person, you're absolutely normal. And what happens is people fail over and over and over again, but the important part is that you learn from your failure. And the next time, you'll do better. And the next time, you'll do better still, and eventually, you'll be successful. Eventually, you'll make lots of money or have a huge impact on society. Whatever your goal is, you will succeed, but it's going to be very hard. And everyone in this room, just has to understand that and accept it as being perfectly normal. So I started out thinking, as my startup company was failing, what did we do wrong? Again, I didn't want to just fail and say, oh crap, this sucks, I wasted 2 years of my life. I was actually looking back and trying to understand what happened. Because if I understand it, I can do better. So I was looking at our experience and also reading a lot of books and articles on startups. And initially I thought there must be 1,000 different reasons why startups fail. Or it's just totally random, where 5% of the people are successful and 95% are unsuccessful, and it's just luck, or it's just random. That's not true. What I found is the reasons for failure started to cluster into groups. And when I started numbering them, I came up with initially 5, now on my slide I have 6 different common reasons. And all of the startups that I looked at had one or more of these problems. I said initially 5. The first time I gave this seminar, one of them was missing, but a question from the audience afterwards prompted me to add one more. So I'm up to 6. It'll be interesting at the end of this talk if one of you identifies number 7, but I'm slowing down. These are all factors. So if you do all 6 of these correctly, you might still fail. If you mess up all 6 of these, if you do all 6 wrong, you might still succeed, but it's going to be very, very difficult. So these are factors. If you do them right, your chance of success will be higher. If you do them wrong, your chance of failure is higher. But don't feel like, oh, I'm under pressure, I have to do all 6 perfectly. Yeah, if you make one of them wrong, your chance is still okay. If you do 2 wrong, maybe, maybe not. If you're doing 3 or more wrong and maybe all 6 wrong, your chances are going to be very low. But just remember, these are factors. They're not like a yes-no kind of exam. So what I'll do is just very quickly walk through them, and then each one of these has a slide all dedicated to that topic. So the first one is timing. In the US anyways, and maybe around the world, there's an expression that says timing is everything. And in a startup company, that's totally true. Time can have 3 different choices. You can be too early, you can be right on time, or you can be too late. Those all will impact your chance of success. Obviously, you want to be right. If you're way too early or way too late, it becomes very difficult for you to be successful. The second one is really important, and we touched on this yesterday, is lack of market or lack of customers. You don't want to spend 2 years, long nights, weekends, lots of money, building something that works and nobody cares. Yeah, that to me is a real tragedy. If you get something, you love it, and nobody wants it. That's a really bad situation. The third one is something that at Sonova we always look very closely at, is sometimes you'll have a technology, it works fine, it solves the problem, and it's a commercial disaster. It's actually more common than you think. And that can include things like the cost is too high. So even though it solves the problem, it costs you too much to make it, or it costs too much for the customer to buy it, and you'll fail. Could be that the time to market is too long. Could be regulatory issues. So there are lots of reasons why a great technology fails commercially. Number 4 is the one that I added after giving this talk in Bangalore, India. So a lot of times we fall in this trap of talking about the technology. You say, I'm a startup company and we're making a brand new polymer composite, or we came up with a new recycling method for plastic, or we came up with a great new app that simplifies international travel. It's always easy to fall into that trap of talking about the tech, but it's actually the people who are the most critical. We talked about the team. You need the right people, you need the right skills, and without that team, your technology will go nowhere. So I'm glad that this is on the list, because it's really important. And investors often will look at the team first. Like they'll say, I don't really care about the technology, I want to see your people. And then they can predict if you'll be successful or not. A great team can be successful with a so-so idea, but a horrible team, even with the best idea, will still fail. So team is really important. Number 5 is money. We hate to talk about money, but it's the fuel that keeps your startup going. And Mark yesterday made a great point of too little money is bad because you can't do anything. Too much money is also bad because it makes you lazy and complacent. So you want just the right amount. And then finally is protection. So things like fear of copying is something you should be aware of. Again, a tragedy to me would be I spend 2 or 3 years, I get a great product, I'm starting to sell, and then another company, either locally or international, copies my product, and there's nothing I can do about it. That's a horrible, horrible end to the story. You want to have some protection to stop other people from copying your great idea. So talking about timing. So on the left is too early. If you're way too early, the market doesn't understand your product. You're almost science fiction. Like people just can't imagine how they would buy or use your product or service. That's a problem because you'll spend a lot of time educating people to say, here's my new thing, and I will teach you why it's good. Or I will teach you how it will improve your life or improve your business. You'll spend a lot of time just educating before you can even make your first sale. And the risk is you run out of time or you run out of money. Sonova is actually originally in that situation. So we're about 12 years old, and when we started out, this idea of outsourced innovation was radically new. And we would meet people and describe our business, and they would just have this confused look on their face of, I don't even understand what you're doing, let alone understand how it will help me. So being early is a problem. Being late is also trouble because you'll have other competitors. There's something called a first mover advantage, which is totally true. If you're the first one to the market, people will associate your company with that new idea. And if you're really good at it, you might end up with something like Kleenex, the tissue paper that you blow your nose. A lot of people refer to that as Kleenex because they were the first ones to be successful. And then if you're a lot too late, it's really, really tough because then there are many, many different competitors out there. The prices come down and it becomes a commodity. And you could have a business dealing with commodities. So if you want to sell cement, or you want to sell polypropylene plastic, or printer paper, you can do that. You might even be successful, but it's not going to be a startup company because you're just playing with commodities. And you're going to have to sell tons of material, literally tons of material, at very low profit. So that's a whole different business model. Okay, so next is one of the worst situations where you make something, it works great, nobody wants it or nobody cares. And to me, it says you didn't do your homework. One of the things that you should always do at the very beginning, maybe before you even form the company, is kind of taste test your idea in the market to make sure that you're on the right track. So you can go out to potential customers and just interview them and say, hi, I'm Chris from new company. If I were to come up with a product that did A, B, C, D, or if I had a service that could do this for you, is that interesting? Is that something you would want to buy or you'd want to invest in? And just get feedback from the market. And you'll find very quickly that people will say, wow, that's a really cool idea. That could improve my life, improve my business. Or they might say, that's a stupid idea. I would never pay money for that. Or I don't see any value in what you're doing. And you can save yourself a lot of time. Now, sometimes people don't really understand what they want. So Steve Jobs, if he were alive here today, would actually laugh at this slide because Apple did a great job of releasing products that no one had ever imagined. And once the iPod or the iPhone came out, no one wanted an iPod. They wanted a better CD player. No one wanted an iPhone. They wanted a better flip phone or a better satellite phone. So Apple took huge risks, absolutely enormous risks, but they had enough money that they could screw up. And everyone thinks of Apple as successful because they do have a lot of great products. They also have a lot of horrible products that failed miserably that no one remembers. But if you've been around long enough, you remember some of the early Apple products were horrible. Nobody bought them, and they lost tons of money. But they had enough time and enough cash to come up with some really great products that have been where they are today. So Steve would hate this slide. So next is commercial viability. Again, at Sonova, this is something that we're really careful about for our customers and our clients. We're all in the business of making money, either to provide a profit or to sustain your startup. So even if you're a nonprofit company, you need to be self-sustaining at some point. So I always look at things like, how are you going to manufacture this product? Especially at scale. Like, it's easy to use a 3D printer to make one product or maybe a couple of prototypes. But in the future, how are you going to manufacture this? How complicated will it be? How expensive will it be? Do you have to look at regulatory approvals? So are you in a market where you can sell the product tomorrow? Or do you have to go through some long, expensive, complicated government approval to sell your product? You know, things like food and beverage, or especially medicines or surgical products, you have to go through a lot of approval, and you have to factor those costs in to your model. If you expect to sell a therapeutic drug tomorrow, you're in for a rude surprise. And then finally, there's something called cost of goods, COGS, and people call it COGS. That has to do with your cost. And there's a lot of buzzwords that you should be gradually picking up. COGS is one of them. For a product, there's actually two different prices. There's the price that you will sell, so the price that you sell to a customer or to the market, and then there's your cost. Your cost should always be below the market price. And the bigger that gap between the market, what they're willing to pay, and your cost is called margin. So again, margin is a word that you should use to sound more credible, that you know what you're talking about. And the bigger the margin is, the more profitable you might be. So it's good to have some margin. If you're equal, that's bad, because then, for every $1 you sell, it costs you $1, and that's not very sustainable. And then it's even worse if instead of like this, it's like that, where if it costs you more to make than it costs a customer to buy it, you have serious, serious problems, because you're actually losing money with every sale. So you need to be aware of this and plan for it. And if your product, again, is too expensive, too complicated, you need to think, should you be making something different? Or can you make improvements? Can you innovate? Can you change your product to bring those costs down? Or to make the reliability much higher, which will make your business more successful. So this is super important. Okay, next is the team. Again, people are absolutely critical to your success. And to me, it's all about balance and getting the team right. If you have a team that is way too big, you're going to have a couple of problems. Number one is it's going to be very expensive because you have to pay all these people. It's also a lot harder to manage because you need different layers of management and you start to look like a very big infrastructure company. Too small a team is also really tough. If you're too small, you're going to run out of hours in the day, or you're going to run out of energy or calories, because if you have one person or two people or three people, there's only so much you can do in a day or in a week or in a month or a year. So you need to get this balance right. There's a story, at least in the West, about Goldilocks and the Three Bears. I don't know if that resonates in Vietnam, but they would try the rice porridge, and one was too hot and one was too cold, and the third one was just right. The team is exactly the same way. You want to have just right. And the team can also change. So what might be the perfect team today, a year from now, is no longer perfect because your needs will change. The team might need to be bigger. You might be a great leader, a great CEO of a startup, but as your company grows, you might no longer be the right person to lead that company, and that's perfectly fine. Or you might need different skills. So the skills you need today are not the same skills when you're out selling the product in your company. So you need to be flexible and allow your team to change, not only in size, but also in skills. And let's see, I skipped the third bullet. This one's really interesting. When most people are asked, who is your team at your startup? They'll say, it's me and these 2 people or these 4 people. And they always think about the team as your coworkers or your employees. The reality is you actually have a bigger team than you think because you have a network. You have coworkers from previous companies. You have colleagues from university. You have just people you know from networking in the community. You have customers. So you actually have this huge expanded team around you that you can go to for advice. You can bring them out for lunch or coffee and say, we're thinking of doing this thing differently. What do you think? Or what's been your experience with this situation or this problem? And what have you found that worked or didn't work for you? What's your corporate strategy on moving from a Vietnam product to a Southeast Asia product or a global product? So your team is a lot bigger than you think. And don't forget these people. Pay attention to them. Send them emails once in a while. Go out to dinner. Go out for coffee. Go out drinking beer on Friday night. They're incredibly valued, and they're a huge resource that you can tap into if you know that they're out there. And after a while, they'll start coming to you also. As you get more experience and more perspective on being a great entrepreneur and a great innovator, you'll be a resource to them as well. Okay, talking about money. Money is really important. Mark yesterday said too much money is just as bad as too little money. I think I'd rather have too much, honestly, than too little. But there is this risk of, if you want to stay hungry as a startup company, you want to feel like I have to work really hard to make this company a success. And if you have too much money in the bank, or if you raise too much money from investors, when you're tired at 5 or 6 or 7 p.m., you'll think, it's okay, I'll just go home and come back tomorrow. Or if you're thinking, should I wake up early on the weekend and keep working, you'll say, no, it's fine, I'll just wait until Monday. So it can make you a little bit lazy and complacent. So money is interesting. Also, there's sort of problems attached to money. People don't just give you money for free, unfortunately. You'll have customers who give you money, but they want a great product or service from you. And if you don't deliver what they expect, they won't be happy with you, and you'll have to deal with an unhappy customer. Same thing with investors. Investors give you money not to be nice, but because they want to make even more money. And when things are going great, investors are easy to deal with because you're hitting milestones, you're communicating, you're saying we're on target, or maybe we're even doing better than we expected, our sales are ramping, everything's good. It's easy to have happy investors. The trick is when things start to go wrong. If you start missing milestones, if your product doesn't work or doesn't work well enough, or you start to run into other problems, you actually need to communicate even more than you did before. We all have this tendency, myself included, when things go bad, you kind of close yourself off and feel like, oh, I have to hide until things improve, and then I'll start communicating. That's actually the worst thing you can do. You need to over-communicate when you start to have problems. You need to say, I'm seeing a problem, here's our strategy for getting past it, and I will communicate even more than before to help you feel comfortable that our team is solving the problem. You actually have to over-communicate. And then on money, you need to decide between funding sources. There's a lot of different sources, and we won't get into that so much today. But it makes a difference. Are you raising money from friends and family, from angel investors, from governments, from venture capital? All of them have their different pros and cons. And as you're raising money, it's better if you're prepared and make intelligent decisions. And number 6, yeah, I'm an intellectual property lawyer, so I need this slide up. To me, the worst thing that can happen in all of this is you spend years and years, have a great product, and then just as soon as you release it, a company from China or wherever comes up with an exact copy at half the price or a tenth of the price and totally kills you. They don't even say thank you. They're just mean and nasty and evil and horrible competitors, but you need a way to prevent that. And one of the things that you can do is use intellectual property. So you'll hear about things like patents for your technology, trademarks for your brand. Copyright is kind of interesting. Software code is actually considered something that you can protect through copyright. Copyright originally protected artistic creations. So things like the sculpture that's on the table in the back, or if I write a book, or do a painting, or record a song. Those are all traditional artistic forms. The funny thing, though, is they consider software code to be a very special kind of art. And you can actually use copyright in addition to patents to protect it. So the first 3, most people have at least heard about or even know about. The 4th one is a little unusual, and the 5th one is very unusual. The 4th one is trade secrets. So sometimes you can actually keep things a secret. And secrets are great as long as they're kept secret. So if you have something that you can hide behind 4 walls and protect it, secrets can last forever. The best secret in the world is Coca-Cola. So the secret recipe for Coca-Cola has been around for about 100 years, a very long time. But if your product is something where I can go to the store, buy your product, rip it apart, and see what's inside, that's probably not a good secret. So secrets are usually things like manufacturing methods, where you can hide it in your factory. Customer lists are secrets. Company strategies are secrets. But if you lose the secret, it's gone forever. So if you accidentally put it on your website or publish it, or somehow it gets out into the public, your secret can last 100 years or 100 seconds. It's up to you. And then the last one, you don't need to be concerned about as a startup company, but it's called trade dress. Trade dress has to do with the look and feel of a product or a service. The people who do this very well are restaurants and coffee shops. So it has to do with things like color and interface and experience. So if I blindfold you and bring you to a Legend coffee and take off the blindfold and hide it, obviously I'll hide the sign of the place. Every Legend coffee shop looks the same. The furniture is the same, the layout is the same, the colors they use are the same. So you'd say, oh, this feels like it's Legend. So I put the blindfold back on, walk you across the street, do the same thing at Starbucks, take off the blindfold. First off, you know it's a different coffee shop because it looks and feels differently. But Starbucks uses different furniture, different color schemes. The layout of the shop is very different. And every Starbucks feels like a Starbucks. Every McDonald's or every KFC feels like their brand because they're doing things very consistently. And after a number of years, customers begin to say, this feels like Starbucks or Legend or KFC. As a startup company, you don't care at all because you're brand new, you're probably going to change very quickly, your product is going to change, maybe even the name of your company will change very, very quickly. So don't worry about trade dress. 20 years from now, if you're still in business and being incredibly successful, you'll start to worry about it. But for now, leave it to the big boys. Okay, so again, I started off saying most startups fail. So I don't know, 90 or 95 or 99% of startups fail. I don't want to fail. I'm sure you don't want to fail. No one says, hey, I'm going to start a new company so I can fail. You never do that. But what happens, I hope, is if you do fail, like most of us fail, you do these three things. So first off, learn from your failure. Don't just get angry or sad or depressed. Be diagnostic about it. Look at your failure and try to figure out, what did we do wrong? What would we do differently if I could go back in time and do it all over again? This is a skill. Yesterday, Mark was talking about riding motorcycles. I'm a big bicycle cyclist. And I'm sure, as a little kid, the first time I got on a bicycle, I didn't win Tour de France. I fell, and I bled on the sidewalk. And what happened? The second time, I'm sure I still fell. It's a skill, and the more you practice a skill, the better you get at it. Doing a startup, being an entrepreneur, it's not a job, it's actually a skill. And the more you do it, you will grow and get better, and your skill will improve. And finally, you have to get up and get back on the bicycle, get back on the motorcycle. Go back in the swimming pool because you didn't swim very well the first time. You have to try again. Nobody in the world says this is easy. This is really, really hard, but it's also incredibly rewarding. It's very exciting. You'll never work so hard as you will as an entrepreneur, but you'll never learn so much in a short period of time, and you will never grow as a person as quickly as you do at a startup company. I said I spent 2 years at a startup. I learned about startup companies. I learned about real estate. I learned about HR problems. I learned about dealing with investors, customers, all these things that I never learned in all those years before at law firms and big companies. So in 2 years, I learned like a lifetime of experience. I don't regret it. Obviously, I wished I made a lot of money and was successful, but I got a lot out of that experience. And if I have the right opportunity, I'll probably do it again. But I'm having too much fun at Sonova. So again, thank you. It's been great having this opportunity. Innovation and startup companies and technology is something that you can tell I'm very excited about. I love my job. It's a fantastic opportunity to do lots of travel, to deal with people all around the world, and come up with great solutions to interesting problems. So thanks for your attention, and I welcome all your questions. Now, for the six, let's go back to the first slide. The 6 common reasons. Do you agree or disagree, or is something missing? Or is this a great list?
Okay, first, thank you for your very inspired talks. Really great. And you remind me that my daughter is a teenager. She loved the song for Trouble is a Friend. So you have like a slogan, problem is
good thing.
Yes. Okay, so my question is, in these 6 factors you mentioned, which one is the most difficulty, or
Which one's the hardest?
yes, and why? And example maybe.
Yeah, it's really a tough question of which of these is the hardest, because they can all kill you dead. I think the most important is the team, which is ironic because, again, in my first draft I didn't include that. If you get a great team, you can keep trying different ideas and be successful. It might not be your first idea. Like you might start an idea, or you might even have an idea, but the more you think about it and the more you survey the market, you might say, yeah, this just isn't that great an idea, or it's not big enough idea, it's not an impactful enough idea, or maybe we'll decide it's too early, it's too late. You might look at other factors. But I think having a good team or a great team will make everything else easier. And remember, it's not just your coworkers, it's your expanded network. So you might start out with 2 or 3 or 4 people, but remember, you have that huge network around you that you can bounce ideas off and get advice of someone who failed. So you might know someone who had a startup company that bombed terribly. And you might think, well, I don't want to talk to them because I'll learn how to fail. But it's kind of like this seminar. If you understand how other people fail, you can avoid falling into those same traps. So in some ways, I'd like to talk to people who are successful, but I also want to talk to people who failed miserably, so I don't do the same thing. But I think you need to start with the team first. Everything else, a good team can manage. Or a good team will know, let's look at market and customers really early in the process. Let's look at commercial viability really early in the process, or actually continually through the process. Keep an eye on your costs. Am I spending too much money on staff or real estate or manufacturing? A good team will know to ask all those questions. A bad team or a so-so team might not pay attention to all these traps that are out there. It's sort of like if you have a field full of landmines. You don't want to just blindly walk across. You want to have the right tools and the right experience to be able to spot, there's a mine here and here, but here's the safe path. So I think team is really important. And also, again, these are factors, and I'm glad you used that word too. It's not a test where if you check 4 boxes, you'll be successful. And if you check only 3, you'll fail. I would love it if it were that easy, but reality is much more complicated. So these are factors. The better you do on all 6, the higher your chance of success. The worse you do, the lower your chance of success. But they're just factors. But try to get it right.
Okay. About the team, which one is more important? The talent or the products or the way they cooperate and willing to work?
So I think probably the interaction is really important. You're going to be spending an incredible amount of hours working with these people. You're going to be tired, you're going to be frustrated, you're going to drink more coffee than you ever imagined, maybe more alcohol than you ever imagined. You're going to be spending all day, all night, all weekend, for years, potentially, with these people, and you need to trust each other, and you need to work as a team. If you have very talented people who don't interact well, it's not going to work. So I think that interpersonal relation is really important. And I've heard this saying about hiring people that said you should hire slowly and fire quickly. And especially in startups, it's important. When you're interviewing a candidate, you want to be really careful. Not only that they have the right skill, but that you want to spend 18 hours a day working with this person. So the idea is, be very careful and mindful about hiring, but also if someone isn't working out, like if you get someone who doesn't cooperate well with others, or there's a lot of fighting, the idea is that you should get rid of problems quickly. So hire slowly, fire.
Can I have one more question?
Of course.
I think it's lunchtime, sorry.
You can have 2 new questions.
Yeah, okay. Actually, my question is a little bit beyond this, but to make to the talk yesterday from Mark,
Yeah.
they said it's one very important issue is to believe in yourself, right? But I think, okay, you use the word balance, but for me, somehow it's like also compromise, a lot of factors, a lot of things. And how to, I mean, still believe in myself, have to be consistent with this job, but somehow how to have that sensible with opportunities, how to define it if you don't have experience.
Well, it goes again back to riding a bicycle or learning to swim. Everyone starts at the beginning, and no one expects you to be excellent at all of these initially. But you should be excited and motivated to learn and to grow and do better, and be humble enough to ask for help. I've found this trap, and it even applies to me sometimes, that very intelligent people have a hard time admitting that they don't know something. They like to think, and occasionally I fall in this trap too, of thinking, I'm very smart, so I know everything, or I can do everything well. It's totally wrong. I'm really good at a couple of things, and I'm really horrible at everything else. But I need to be comfortable and humble enough to ask for help from coworkers or from my network when I need help. And even that's a skill. Asking for help is really important. But as you talk to people and learn from them, your skill will grow. And you don't need to be an expert in everything, because you won't. No matter, I don't care how good you are, how many years you've been in business, you'll never be an expert at everything. But you'll be really good at some things, and that's where your value is. And you need to work with other people who complement your skills. And together, you'll do very well. But it's a skill. Everyone has to start somewhere.
Thank you.
Sure. Go ahead.
Can you share a little bit about your startup company? So, what reasons that you had interested with?
Sure. That's actually a great question. I should put a slide mapping our failure. So our company, we were trying to use chemistry for data archiving. So you may or may not know this, but if you do a flash drive or store data on a disk or even on the cloud, that data erodes over time, especially if it's writable and rewritable media, it degrades. And your computer kind of compensates for that. But if you take a disk or a flash drive and lock it away for 10 or 20 or 50 years, your data is probably gone. So our idea was, can we use chemistry and material science to make a better CD or DVD that will last 100 years? That was our target. Okay, so let's march through 1 through 6 and see how badly we did. Timing, we were a tiny bit late, but not bad. This was at a time when CDs and DVDs and Blu-ray were still very popular, and cloud computing was just starting. So I think our timing was okay. There was definitely a market. We had a lot of customers saying we would buy this product. Commercially viable was interesting. It took longer to develop the product than we wanted, and the machinery it took to manufacture was pretty expensive. So our cost, our COGS, that cost of goods sold, was higher than we would have liked it to be. So we were a little bit bad. So we were a little bit bad on 1, we were good on 2, we were a little bit bad on 3. The team, I wasn't the CEO, so don't blame me. We really screwed up on team. We did a very bad job on team. We hired way too many people way too quickly. Because we were excited and we thought, let's plan for the future and let's have all this staff and a big office because we're going to need all these people and it's really exciting. But what happened was our cost, our burn rate, was incredibly high very early on, and it really drained our money. And that meant you'll hear this term called runway. Basically, it means how long can you go until you run out of money. Our runway kept getting shorter and shorter because our costs kept going higher and higher. A lot of that was due to the team being too big, and we hired people before we really needed them. That's not my fault. Money issues, we did okay. We actually had kind of the right amount of money, so not too little, and we definitely didn't have too much. But I think we didn't communicate very well with our shareholders when things started to go wrong. And as a result, towards the end, we had a lot of very grumpy, unhappy shareholders. So I think, again, we're kind of a mixed performance on 5. Number 6, we actually did very well. We had patents in the US and we were pursuing around the world. We registered trademark for our name and for our logo. So we had good protection. And if we had made it to market, and if we had been successful, we had a nice wall or a nice minefield surrounding our product. So I think we did well on that. But number 6 by itself is not enough. It's like, yeah, a lot of people think, oh, well, I got a patent issued or my trademark is registered. I don't want to say it doesn't matter, because it does matter, but that's just one piece of the puzzle and it's not enough. I think that's probably the least important. So yeah, you were asking what's the most important, which would be team. I think the last one on the list would be IP protection. It's still important, but I would probably pick that as number 6. So we did okay, but we failed. Yeah, I'd say we got a bunch of kind of 50% marks. We got one 100% mark, and we got one 0% mark. But we were still part of the 95% that failed. It's too bad, and again, I own 7% of 0. But that's the way it works. But did I learn? Absolutely. Everything from this slide, I can relate back to my experience. Did I grow? Absolutely. I learned a lot, and I was a much better innovator, inventor, entrepreneur, lawyer, business person from those 2 years than all those years before it. And when I went to Sonova, I could use all those things I learned to perform better in my current job. Learn, grow, try again was the third thing on the slide. Yeah, I didn't kill myself, obviously. I didn't get depressed. I did get angry for a little while, but I got over it and just realized being an entrepreneur is hard, but it's a great experience. And again, given the right chance, I'll probably do it again. But now I know where all these traps are, and I'll do a better job of trying to avoid them. Or if someone asks me, hey, I have a startup company, I want you to join, I'll be able to ask the right questions, because I know these 6 things are things that I should ask them about. And if they either have bad answers or no answer or don't even understand my question, I'm probably not going to join that startup company. But if someone shows that they understand, they're using the right terminology at the right time correctly, I'll have a better confidence that this startup company has a good chance of success, and I want to jump on that ship and go sail out into the big scary ocean because I think we're going somewhere great. So again, I'm glad in a way that 2 years of my life were wasted at a failed startup company. So it was a good experience. Now, is this like new to you, or did you know 5 out of 6 already? I'm curious. Like, is this all brand new and interesting and exciting, or have I bored you for an hour with stuff that you already knew? You're like, yeah, I'm hungry. Let's go to lunch. Give me some feedback.
It's great because it's structured. I know some, but some things are new. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much for very interesting talk yesterday. So that's how it was startup successful. And today, most of startup fail, but don't be afraid of failure because you learn and try again.
And I'll be here through lunch, so feel free to ask me questions one-on-one. I also have business cards if you're interested in learning more about Sonova and the weird, wacky things that we do as well. Thanks a lot.